Good morning, children. So let's start from page number 67. Susan said not to give her the chloroform if it would harm the baby. She's awful set upon this child, doctor. Her old eyes warmed at a sudden thought. She added in a low tone, "Ah, we all are, I fancy." So we have read that the doctor had gone there to get the baby delivered, and the old lady, she just addressed the doctor, and then she said, Susan was Mrs. Morgan, the lady who was going to deliver the baby. So the old lady, she asked the doctor that Mrs. Morgan, or we can say Susan, she had told her mother that she didn't want that the doctor should give chloroform. Chloroform, it's anesthesia, you can say, which makes one insensitive to pain. So Susan didn't want the doctor to give her the chloroform because it might harm the baby, and she's awful set upon it, means she was keen to have that baby. Her old eyes warmed at a sudden thought, and when the lady was thinking about all this, her eyes, they just gleamed. And she, along with that, she told the doctor, "Actually, we all are very keen to have that baby." He collected himself with an effort. So the doctor got up. It took some effort for him to get up from there and to tell Mrs. Mrs. Morgan's mother, "It won't do any harm, the anesthetic," he said kindly. "They will be all right." He said to the lady, to Mrs. Morgan's mother, that, "Ma'am, the anesthetic means the liquid that makes one insensitive to pain. This anesthesia, it will not do any harm to the mother or the baby. They will be all right." Here the nurse's voice was heard calling from the top landing, and Duke glanced at the clock, which now showed 3:30. He rose and went up to the bedroom. He perceived that he might now begin his work. So, and soon they heard the voice of the nurse that was sitting there with Mrs. Morgan. She was calling from there, and he took a look at the clock, and the clock was showing the time 3:30. It was 3:30 in the morning. He rose up and he went to the bedroom, and he perceived means he realized, he noticed that now it is the time when he has to start his work. Now the time has come when Mrs. uh, Morgan's was about to deliver the baby. An hour elapsed. It was a long, harsh struggle. So 1 hour passed. Elapsed means passed. 1 hour passed, and after a long and very tough, harsh is very tough struggle, then as the first streaks of dawn strayed past the broken edges of the blind, the child was born lifeless. As the first streaks of dawn, streaks means signs. Dawn is the daybreak. Strayed is deviated. So, this line means that as the sun rose in the morning, or as the light appeared in the sky, and the light of sun can be seen behind the curtains, the baby was born. But unfortunately, the baby delivered was lifeless. The baby was dead. As he gazed at the still form, a shiver of horror passed over Andrew. And when the doctor gave a look at the still form means the dead baby, a shiver of horror, he was just horrified. And after all that he had promised, his face, heated with his own exertions, chilled suddenly. After his so tough efforts, and after he had promised to himself that everything would be fine, but it was all useless, it was all futile, and his face, it turned uh, heated with his own exertions means after so much of hard work, his face turned chilled means it turned white and cold. Suddenly he hesitated, torn between his desire to attempt to resuscitate the child and his obligation towards the mother, who was herself in a desperate state. Now he was very much hesitated. Two thoughts were coming in his mind, and he was unable to decide what to do. And what the thoughts were, the first was, one of his thoughts asked him to he should try to uh, resuscitate, means to bring back to life again. The first thought was that he should bring back the child to life again, and the other was his obligation was his duty. His duty was towards the mother, that he should first save the mother, who herself was in a very desperate, means in a very uh, unconscious or very hopeless state. The dilemma is the confusion was so urgent, he didn't solve it consciously. So he was struggling between these two thoughts, whether he should save the mother first or he should save the baby, and he was not unable to decide what to do. So blindly, instinctively, instinctively means guided by natural impulse, स्वभावत रूप से. So without giving much importance to the thoughts, he just started doing what he think was correct. So he gave the child to the nurse and turned his attention to Susan Morgan, who now lay collapsed, almost pulseless and not yet out of the ether, upon her side. So quickly he decided, and he gave the child to the nurse, and he paid his full attention to save the mother, Susan, who was lying there unconsciously and almost pulseless. It was like there was no pulse in her, and still she was not out of the effect of the ether, of the anesthesia that was given to her, and that was just kept beside her. His haste was desperate. He was a frantic race against her ebbing strength. Uh, his haste means he was so uh, hurriedly he was doing all that thing. He himself had turned like a madman. A frantic means a mad, a wild race against her ebbing. Ebbing means flowing away or diminishing. He very quickly tried to save the mother, whose strength was diminishing, whose, we can say, whose breath was flowing away. She was about to die. It took him only an instant to smash a glass ampule and inject the medicine. So quickly he smash means to break. He break a glass ampule. Ampule is a small container in which a medicine was there. He broke the bottle of that, and he filled the injection with that medicine. Then he plunged down the hypodermic syringe and worked unsparingly to restore the flaccid woman. And then quickly he threw away that, and the hypodermic syringe, it was a syringe simply, and that was filled uh, with the medicine, and he worked unsparingly, means very feverishly, very quickly. He did all that to bring back the flaccid. Flaccid means the loosed or the lifeless lady that was lying there. After a few minutes of feverish effort, her heart strengthened. So he tried very hard, and just after a few minutes, the lady's heart started beating. It got strength, and the pulse was there again. He saw that he might safely leave her. So he thought that now the mother is out of danger, and he could leave the lady. And he swung round in his shirt sleeves, his hair sticking to his damp bro, and he uh, turned back quickly in his shirt. The sleeves of his shirt, they were just you can say latak rahi thi. And since he has uh, worked very hard, he was sweating, his hair was sticking to his damp eyebrow, means this shows that he had worked very hard, and he was full of sweat now. Where's the child? Then he quickly asked the nurse, where was the child? The midwife made a frightened gesture. She had placed it beneath the bed. The midwife, when she heard that the doctor was asking about the child, she was just terrified, and in her terror, she just indicated, just to mean she just gave a point. She just made a gesture indicating that she had placed the baby under the bed. In a flash means at once. Andrew knelt down. He just bent down, fishing amongst the sodden newspapers below the bed, he pulled out the child. Fishing means searching. So there were many sodden or wet, many wet newspapers were there under the bed, and he searched the baby from there, and he took out the baby from those wet newspapers. A boy perfectly formed. That was a baby boy, and it was complete. The limp means which is not stiff, ekdam lunge punch type. The warm body was white and soft as tallow. Tallow is its, you can say it's fat of animals. Ekdam chikna sa, it was like that. The baby, because a newborn baby just like that only. It is not, it is very soft, not stiff, and it's just like the fat of an animal when melted. So the cord, hastily slashed, lay like a broken stem. Cord is, you can say, it is the placenta. It was very quickly, in a haste, it was cut down and it was lying there. As we